business or pleasure. My mic has given me such a problem that I am going to literally use the mic I used to podcast with for these videos. Let's see how it goes. I'm basically obsessed with this book. I feel like this book was written for me. I loved it so much that I had to do a deep dive for the blog of this book. And if you are really interested in my deep, deep thoughts, tons of quotes, tons of stuff, go to jacereadsromance.com and check out the blog post. But in general, this book floored me. The basic premise is, I can't even, hold on. Chandler and Finn have a one-night stand, really great chemistry, but the actual one-night stand is terrible. Just like the worst sex of Chandler's life. FMC, Finn is the MMC. And then it turns out that they have to work together. She is a ghostwriter for his memoir. She confesses one night that their one-night stand was terrible, to which then he drunkenly texts all his ex. It doesn't matter. They engage in a sexual schooling scenario where they progress through intimacy in the hopes for Finn that he gets better at it, and for Chandler, because she really liked him, and why not? They're on this tour together. It is so great. It has so much sex positivity. There's a lot of intimacy. It doesn't go from nothing to sex. I mean, that's kind of what it goes like in their one night stand, but the actual progression of intimacy is nice. There are moments when they move forward. There are moments when they pull back. I loved it. I thought that they were really fun. I thought that the intimacy was really well written. I felt like it really spoke to my soul in the way that Chandler is empowered in her own sexuality and in her ability to communicate with Finn. Really, the only regret is that she faked an orgasm during their one-night stand, because she shouldn't have. Never fake an orgasm. Just because it worked out in this book does not mean it will work out in real life. Do not fake an orgasm, because then you have people who think they're really good at sex and they never learn. They never learn. I love this book. If you want my really deep dive thoughts, go to the blog where they all are. I'm so happy. I read Black Love Matters. Yes, there's a picture up there so you can actually see it, but this is my copy. I have been working really hard to go through my physical TBR this month, and if you've looked at my Goodreads, I started this back in like January. Oops. Part of the reason why it took me so long is this is not an easy read. If you're really sitting with this is not an easy book to read and consume. It puts to light a lot of truths about the world that if you're fortunate enough to be able to ignore, you usually do. And when I tell you that finishing this book, I was crying, I'm 100% serious. This book is incredibly touching. The authors of these essays have done an amazing job of showing the full breadth of importance that Black love has in the romance world, and that it's not just a little love story. It has a bigger impact on us and on this community, but really this book was not written for me necessarily, but I am so glad that I read this one. If you're serious about championing diversity in romance, if you're serious about being an inclusive reader in romance and diversifying your own shelf and kind of coming up against the habits that society and capitalism and the patriarchy have put upon you, I highly recommend this book because it is incredibly eye-opening into things that you've never thought about as they are. It really showcases the reality of reading romance in a new light and has made me rethink a lot of things. So there's no spice. Sorry, there's no spice in this book. It is a group of essays about Black love in romance novels, and specifically two main characters who are Black as opposed to any other ethnicity. This is specifically championing and highlighting Black love in romance. So thank you, Jessica P. Pryde, who is the editor of this, and to all of the people who wrote essays for this book. It's incredible. Sometimes you just gotta go on a pirate adventure that breaks down the patriarchy, and that is exactly what I did when I read Sinner's Isle by Angela Montoya. This was such a fun book. It is a fantasy book where there are pirates, there's magic. All the magic, pretty much, is women. Women are born with magic, and the church and the system has said that they're bad, and they all have to go and live on this one island where they learn how to use their magic. And some people have big magic, and some people have little magic. Oh my gosh, the representation of the patriarchy through this fantastical lens, I was just screaming. Thank you, Angela Montoya. I loved it so much. You have Rosalinda and Mariano FMC MMC. Rosalinda is on Sinner's Isle. She is a shadow mommy. I don't know if that's the term that I'm using, but y'all use shadow daddies a lot, so I'm putting shadow mommy out there. She's come of age, and basically what happens is rich people in this kind of country, which is made up of islands, come and they pay the fucking church to buy a woman, and they magically chain her to him with like piercing and iron and blood magic. It's absolutely a metaphor for the patriarchy, and I'm all here for it. And you have Mariano, who is the prince of pirates. He is on an adventure to kind of avenge his father and find riches with this magical crystal thing that's supposed to take him to like what his heart truly wants. And guess what? It's Rosalinda. It's Rosalinda. So we follow Rosalinda and Mariano through this week of presentations. He shows up on Sinner's Isle the week of the presentations of the women to the people who are going to buy them, and she's trying to break away, and the person, like, her best friend's been kidnapped, and it's this it's an absolutely awesome adventure of magic and intrigue. There's no spice. You can come at me and say that they have sex at the end of the book. They do. It's not described at all. There's no, I can't even, it basically faded to black. It like might as well have faded to black in the way that it was like, oh, and then all of our clothes disappeared and he lay me on the bed, and no spice. But if you're looking for a lot of adventure, if you are someone who is looking for Spanish in your books, for people who have Latinx culture and who are native Spanish speakers, this is a great book. I found it very accessible. Angela Montoya did a great job of putting in Spanish words and phrases and people, but using enough context that I never felt like I couldn't understand what was happening next. Luckily, I also read this on an e-reader, so I had the internet search option there if I really felt lost. But after the first couple instances where if I just read the next sentence, I would have known what was going on, I trusted her to take me with her. And so I really thank you for writing a book that was accessible, and it felt like I was included on that. But also, this book might not have been written for me, and it didn't mean that I didn't enjoy it. I loved it. It was a blast. So if you like piratey adventures, if you want to see someone break down the patriarchy because women are magical and amazing and wonderful, yes they are, yes they are, yes they are. If you want to see a world where yes we have an MMC and an FMC and it is a straight love interest but everyone around them is queer, read this book, Sinner's Isle. I feel like such a hypocrite with this book. It's If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy, and I'm gonna start with, you can see I really liked it, but this is a Cinderella retelling. It's literally by Disney, so if you wanted spice, there's no spice. It missed a bunch of things about Cinderella in a way that I really liked. There were homages to it, there were mentionings, but a lot of the things didn't happen in the same way, and for some reason that didn't bother me. I could tell that this was inspired by Cinderella. You have Sin, a recent grad of Parsons School of Design. She's obsessed with shoes. I love that for her. She meets a gentleman on her flight back to LA, Henry, and they have this great banter, but they miss connection. They do not get each other's number. Sin is about to move back in with her stepmother, Elaine Tremaine, and I was like, oh no. Her relationship with her stepmother and stepsisters is great, and I actually really appreciated it. I loved how supportive her stepmother was. I loved how supportive her stepsisters were. And while there's certainly complications that goes along with that, there wasn't this abuse that Cinderella usually comes with in terms of a storyline, in terms of a plot point. There is a stepmother. There are stepsisters. Both of her parents are dead. It's complicated, but it isn't a terrible, horrible, abusive relationship. She's kind of lost in her life in the grief of losing her dad. And that's the emotional wellspring that she comes from. Anyway, her stepmother is the big producer of what is essentially The Bachelor. I must confess, I have never watched a dating show. I never got into that. So like with hockey, I can just suspend my disbelief and pretend that anytime someone's on one of these dating shows, this is what happens and this is how it is. I don't know enough about them to question the books. They have this big show. The new season is about to start and a couple people drop out, and Sin goes on the dating show. Her stepmother's right-hand person says Sin would be great. Sin is also plus sized. I should mention that. She says, I want to go. And her stepmother at first goes, no. And Sin goes, you telling me no because you don't want to see me hurt, because you know the world isn't going to be kind to me, doesn't make me feel supported. It makes me feel like you're trying to shelter me and I want to go. So she goes on the dating show, and lo and behold, the actual suitor is Henry, dude from the plane. And so there's this absolutely fun. I know you, I had chemistry with you, but now we're on a dating show and all the conflict that a dating show brings up when you're also trying to date 20 other women around me. What's real? What's not real? What do I want? What am I going to do? And it's fun. Dating shows are fun. I don't really want to watch them, but I like reading books about dating shows a lot. Send me your we're on a dating show recommendation books, because this seems to be a trope that I thoroughly enjoy. And I did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It ended slightly differently than I expected, which I appreciated, because with these meant to be novels, I don't want them to be the same thing as the story. I felt like that when I read by the book. I really loved what Jasmine Guillory did with it, because it was clearly inspired by Beauty and the Beast, but I didn't feel it was Beauty and the Beast. Same with this. There was a lot of Cinderella in there, but she really saved herself. Didn't have to wait for the fairy godmother, even though she gets a beautiful dress from Dolce & Gabbana. Beautiful dress. She really pulled herself up, and I liked that. That's one of the biggest problems with Cinderella, is you don't watch someone step into their own power, and you did with this story. So if you like Meant to Be, if you don't mind zero spice, just lacking spice everywhere, read If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy.